All right, everybody, welcome back to RCT Creations for a park showcase today. We're going to be showcasing Houston Pleasant from the Fun Corporation series, which will be the third park in that chain. And what I'm going to go ahead and get started out with in relation to that series is I'm going to talk about and throw up the operating season for the park on screen right now. So the park will normally operate from March to December, and will remain closed for January and February. In June, July, August, and October, that will be considered the peak season. So what we do for that is we turn on the cheat for continuous advertising campaigns. We turn the park advertising campaign on, and we flood the park with guests to kind of simulate the heaviest peak season that amusement parks typically have. Beyond that, little longer of an operating season compared to Joyland, as you see there, but Funland still being the only full year-round operation in the chain. But beyond that, let's go ahead and hop into the actual park tour itself, starting with the ticket booths. Well, the parking booths. So guests will pull off this highway right here, or cars will, I guess. They'll pull into our huge parking lot here, and then leave their cars unattended while they go have fun inside the amusement park. For RCT, our guests will spawn right here, and then take the long trek over the bridge, over our road, underneath the highway, and then buy their ticket right here. Now, this park opening year is 2000, so online tickets aren't really quite a thing yet, so you would be buying your tickets at the gate. After that, you redeem those tickets here, and then you are in the main plaza area of the park. Not a great time for rain right now, although those guests are going to be spending their $20 on umbrellas at guest services right here. For the main plaza, we have our souvenir stalls right here. We have a coffee shop and a pizza place on this side. Right here we have ice cream, we have cookies, and over here we have donuts. So a lot of sweet treats and souvenirs for guests to pick up throughout the day, or more than likely on their way out for those souvenirs. At the end of that, we have our Ferris wheel, which I wish RCT2 had kind of a chance ride style Ferris wheel for a little bit bigger, as we're kind of stuck with the Eli Bridge modeled one, but it works, and I think it looks nice at the end of the main plaza here. Behind that, we have kind of a nice little plaza for guests to sit on. Maybe you have parents, grandparents that want to take a break while the kids go on the Ferris wheel, or vice versa. They can sit right here and get a nice look over the pond right here. Maybe look at the ducks throughout the day as they fly away, or maybe even the floating away balloons. Moving away from the main plaza, we're going to start with downtown right here. The first thing they're going to run into is the downtown trams, which has 2 rails, which will take guests to the other side of downtown. But right here, we have the original initial headlining attraction, Zephyr. As for park history within the story, Houston Pleasant was initially supposed to be a family park located in Cypress, Texas, just near Houston. And while it is still located in Cypress, in 1998, Time Warner announced they were selling Six Flags to Premier Parks. And with that, Fun Corp really wanted to try to up their game and scale this park up. But Zephyr was planned from the get-go. Zephyr is a CCI family wooden roller coaster, heavily inspired by, I guess it's called Woodstock Express now at Kings Island. Kings Dominion also has a very similar wooden coaster, I think also called Woodstock Express. And then Michigan's Adventure has one called Zach Zoomer, which also has a layout that is identical to those two. But just a nice family wooden coaster. This would be a full-scale one, so scaled up a little bit, but that is what the layout would heavily be inspired by. And then as with a lot of these late 90s, early 2000s CCIs, this ride runs Gerstlauer wooden coaster trains, although only with 5 cars. Being a CCI, it features very minimal banking. It has a couple lateral force moments, but they are going to be pretty toned down in comparison to a full-scale because it is a family coaster. But we drop down, go through our turnaround right here. Little moment of lateral force right here, and we do our double down, turn around, head back, and do our loop around before coming back to the station. Next to the entrance for Zephyr, we have a little merchandise stand right here for some downtown souvenirs. Then across the way from that, we have the city market, our first food stand, where guests can go inside into the air conditioning to grab a bite to eat, grab something to drink, before continuing on with their day. Following our tram line here, we have Interstate 2000, which is Houston Pleasant's bumper car ride. Behind that, we have Taxi Driver, the first of 2 car rides featured at Houston Pleasant. This one has a little bit of a unique twist in that it has 2 stations. So, much like a taxi, you get driven from point A to point B. Now you drive yourself from point A to point B and can find yourself on a different part of the park. Behind that, we have Street Racer, which is a Who's Rides breakdance, kind of the older style one. If you haven't had the chance to get on one of those, I would definitely recommend it because they are very fun rides. Moving back to Taxi Driver with the 2 stations, one thing that would be kind of convenient about this ride, although it would make it very, very long, is on a day where you have low staff, you could potentially cut one of the stations and just have the cars drive right through. Moving back to the tram station here, we have The Stop, which is kind of a gas station, and by kind of I mean is a gas station inspired food stand. Within the Fun Corporation series, these were featured at both Funland and Joyland as well, although Joyland's is no longer there, although the gas pumps are still used as the entrance for their go-kart ride. If you travel a lot on road trips to whether it's to other amusement parks or to just anywhere, you tend to stop at a lot of gas stations. In the morning, you might grab a coffee. For lunch, you might grab a soda and a hot dog. So this is very heavily themed out that. Guests would be able to go in here and grab a soda out of a cooler, grab a roller hot dog, grab a cup of coffee before continuing on with their day. Next to that, we have the Downtown Guest Service, which has an ATM and a info kiosk inside of it. And then next to that is City Waterworks, the park's Intamin log ride. Pretty basic layout. You start with your dip out of the station, into the first lift, then kind of a descent, gravity-driven descent down, where you slosh around, slosh about a little bit, get maybe a little bit of splash before you head into the second lift, into the big drop, into the splashdown. After the splashdown, you just get a couple small turns back into the station. Here is our second station for the downtown trams, so you can transport yourself back to the front of the park if you would so choose. And behind that, we have the second downtown merch stand, which has blue hats and sunglasses for all the cool cats out there. Moving on to the first of the park's 2 headlining attractions. As I mentioned before, when Time Warner sold Six Flags, Fun Corporation really wanted to scale this park up to compete with Astroworld, and Houston Comet was their answer to that. Seeing as CCI built Zephyr, they went right back to CCI and contacted them to build their biggest coaster ever, if it were real. CCI's biggest coaster ever actually was Shivering Timbers at Michigan's Adventure, standing at 122 feet. Houston Comet stands at 130 feet, so it would have been CCI's biggest coaster. With it being a 2000, CCI did make it a hybrid structure, so we have the gray supports to mimic the steel structure while still running the traditional wooden track. And this ride actually would feature PTCs. Now this would be something Fun Corporation would have had to go out and buy themselves, as CCI no longer sold their rides with PTCs at this point, as far as I'm aware. As far as inspirations with this ride, we have quite a few of them. The first hill and turnaround are very Mega Zeph, Six Flags New Orleans or Jazzland inspired, with the massive first drop into the turnaround. Beyond that, we have our speed hill, and then right here we have a boss-inspired turn right here. CCI, again, very well known for their lack of banking, so a very, very high lateral force moment right here on this ride. After that, we have our turnaround, small bunny hop into our mid-course brake run, and our mid-course brake run, believe it or not, is inspired by another CCI ride. This one being inspired by Ghost Rider. Early in Ghost Rider's days, and even now, after the GCI rebuild, Ghost Rider's mid-course brake run does not engage at all, and riders in the back cars get absolutely whipped over this drop right here. Very, very sharp. Now, in the middle of Ghost Rider's life, these trim brakes were on pretty heavily to try to limit some wear and tear, but seeing as we're in the year 2000 for this park, this ride is brand new. that mid-course is not being used for absolute maximum airtime factor for the back car. After that, we go through a couple turns to turn around here. We head back underneath the structure into a CCI trick track right here before we turn around and head back to the final brake run. Now, originally I had wanted to have one of those kind of iconic CCI unbanked helixes right here. However, if we look, we have 18 drops on this ride, and we already have an intensity of 9.73. So unfortunately, originally this ride had 22 drops, which skyrocketed the intensity rating, so I had to cut something. And unfortunately, the helix had to get cut, but the trick track is still there. After that, we head into our final brake run through our transfer track. And then this section is kind of Rampage Alabama Adventure inspired, where we have our dip off the final brake run into one last lateral moment heading into the station. Rampage, really hope that opens again at some point. I'd really love to give that a ride, as it's near twin over in the UK. Megaphobia will unfortunately probably never operate again. So if you have a local CCI, go ride it, give it a chance. They seem to be kind of disappearing like crazy lately. Moving on from Houston Comet, we're going to go into the family section of the park, where we have Cypress Express. Now, in Fun Corporation lore, this ride actually opened in 1970 at Funland in California, but it closed in 1998, was dismantled and shipped over here to Cypress, and now operates as Cypress Express. Just a standard EF Miler kiddie coaster, oval layout, 2 little hills, and it runs 2 laps. Good kiddie coaster to get started with, although it does feature a pretty high intensity rating for a kiddie coaster. Moving on, we have our first train station of 2 located in the family area. And then we have a hot dog and soda stand. Pretty standard stuff. Our second car ride, Houston Racers, also featured in the family section. Much shorter and only features 1 station. And then we have our Whip and Whirl Zamperla teacup ride right here. On the opposite side of the pond, we have the Houston Pleasant Carousel. And I really like the location of this ride on this little peninsula where it overlooks everything on the pond. So you get a really nice view while on the ride, and then looking at it from across the way, it would look really good as well, I think. We also have our general store merch stand right here and attached food stand called Family Kitchen. My buildings tend to be very rectangular or boxy and square, but I think this building, while still having that, looks pretty good with the extra addition on the sides here. Just a little bit more texture, and I love the colors on this building as well. Now to the left of the main entrance, we have our main midway right here in our second railroad station. And the second kettle cord stand, the first located in downtown. I didn't mention it, but there is one over there. We'll get to this section here in just a moment. But first, we're going to look at our water rides and our pirate ship. So this is definitely the more water-based section of the park, although we have our log ride on the other side. We do have our Intamin River Rapids ride over here, which name is inspired by a level from Pac-Man World 2, one of my favorite games growing up on the PS2. Ice River Run was my favorite level in that game, so I reused it here, although the theming for this ride would kind of take maybe Blizzard River at various Six Flags parks kind of inspiration. Moving on, we have our second, or I guess third, guest services and ATM in the aquatic section. Then we have Samuel Seafood, our food stand. And as you've seen, all of our areas kind of have a central food stand for guests to enjoy. Then right here we have Double Drop Falls, a Premier Rides liquid coaster prototype. So this one would have been the first one to open had it existed in real life. In real life, Buzzsaw Falls at Silver Dollar City would have been the first. There were 2 of them. One of them would be in Europe, in Finland, although I can't pronounce the name of it, and I'm not going to try. It'd be very embarrassing for me. So I apologize for not mentioning it, although the Intamin Blitz Coaster Taiga did replace it over there in Europe. Very simple ride, lift hill into a drop, airtime hill into the double drop, through the waterfall, on-ride photo, airtime hill into the final brake run. So very simple layout, but again, just supposed to be a prototype ride. potentially for another liquid coaster in the Fun Corporation. So keep an eye out for a RCT construction for that and POV video for that, potentially. Not trying to spoil anything. As far as the line goes, broken down right now, but when full, that queue time sign does indeed say 80 minutes. Would not catch me waiting 80 minutes for a ride like that. Although with its 6 passenger boats, capacity is very low. Moving on into our final section, we are going to visit Future World, and this is by far my favorite theme section I have ever put together. I think everything about it just ended up looking so good. And it ended up being pretty much inspired by the RCT1 scenario of the same name, Future World. Brian and Dreslick just happened to be doing his scenario playthrough series, and he hit that park. Now, as I was looking for a name for this, I figured, hey, let's go with that. And if you haven't seen his RCT scenario series, would definitely recommend checking it out. Gives really good ideas for realistic builds, gives a lot of good tips, and I cannot recommend that channel enough. So go ahead and give him a shout out. In this area, in Future World, we have the Orbiter, which is a Sierra wave swinger. We have a Pixar-inspired name, the Claw, which is an Eli Bridge scrambler. Then over here would have been the initial pre-upgrade standout within here. These are 3 Intamin motion simulators located within this building. And then what I would have done, if possible, or to be more realistic, is probably have 1 entrance and 1 long queue, and a grouper that would send to each of the motion simulators as they became available. However, unfortunately in game we can't do that, so each of them was giving a 9-tile, exact 9-tile queue line. So it limits the wait to about 10 minutes. Right here we have a meteor theme to Xenon 200 at Funland, and to follow that up, we have the second of 2 headlining coasters, the first being Houston Comet, the second being Xenon The Last Stand. Features a nearly identical layout to Xenon The Last Stand at Joyland in New York. Although this one, rather than having a Chang or Mantis-inspired turnaround into a vertical or a straight drop, has a Riddler's Revenge-inspired curved drop. Beyond that, the layouts are almost exactly the same, up until after the corkscrew, where we have the layout take a more vertical approach as opposed to an L-shaped. But with that, we are back at the front gate, and that will complete our tour of Houston Pleasant. If you've made it this far, thank you very much. I really do appreciate you tuning in for this. I've been having a really good time with this series. I actually went back recently and watched how much... I watched the first couple episodes of the Fun Corp series, and watching how much Funland and Joyland have grown since they first started, I cannot wait to see how this park grows, because we have left ourselves plenty of room for development in the future. But thank you all for tuning in. It's been a pleasure, and I will see you all in the next one. Thank you very much.